Welcome to this edition of Simsbury School News. My name is Dominique Avery. After a summer break, the school system is ready for the start of the school year. We are taping this on August 12th, exactly 2 weeks before the children come back to school in Simsbury on Wednesday, August 26th. To help us kick off the school year, our guests today are Superintendent of Schools, Matt Curtis,
nice to see you,
and Assistant Superintendent of Schools of Pupil Services, I think that's the title,
yes.
Sue Lemke. Thank you both for coming. I know you're really busy, and I really appreciate your taking the time.
Thanks.
As a former school teacher, I know the start of every school year is very exciting for everyone, children, teachers, and parents. Matt, as you start your fourth year as a superintendent in Simsbury, as an administrator, do you still get excited when the school year starts?
You know, something about education and the cycle of education, right? We talk about that a lot, that it comes to an end in the spring, and you have an opportunity to recharge your battery and get started again. So it's my favorite part of the year as I'm preparing my remarks for our faculty when we get together at Convocation. That's a piece of it, how excited I actually am as I enter my fourth year, and I think my 11th overall in Simsbury. So it's an exciting time. We have a lot going on. Education's a busy place, as you know, these days. So, but in terms of how I feel moving forward, it's great.
So you are also a very experienced teacher, you're also a parent, you're also an administrator. Same thing for you?
Absolutely. I always say as an educator, you have two Happy New Years. You have the January 1st and you have that last Wednesday in August. And I often go around saying Happy New Year to everyone. And it's just all about fresh starts and new beginnings, and that's what it's all about.
So there have been a lot of changes for you. We'll get to that in a second,
Sure.
but just in the system as a whole, a lot of
Right.
personnel changes. You want to describe a little bit? What's
Sure.
going on?
I know we'll talk about Sue's new role a little bit later on, I think. But so certainly a central office restructure where Sue has shifted from kind of heading up our HR operation to now overseeing our special services department, which is a pretty big shift for Sue, but one I know she's excited about, and I think our whole population of both parents and faculty are excited about. So also another big transition, we have Neil Sullivan, who was our former high school principal for 10 years, did great work at Simsbury High School, now taking on the former responsibilities of Sue in the personnel office. So he's our director of personnel. We'll work a lot with teacher development and certainly hiring staff and supporting staff through professional development, which lands us at what was the vacant seat of Simsbury High School, which is our flagship operation and a school we're very proud of. And we've hired Andy O'Brien, who was the former principal at Nonawag High School. And he started July 1st and is transitioning in. And I know you're going to have an opportunity to speak with him and bring him on a show next month. But a true gentleman and a great educator, and I think will be a great fit for our community. So those are the major shifts from an administrative standpoint. I think we're bringing in, I don't know if the exact number is 12 or 14 new hires in the teaching ranks through some retirements in shifts. So we'll have an opportunity to continue to build our team.
Thank you. That's a lot of changes. So I was going to do it later, but let's do it now.
Okay.
We'll talk about physical changes in the school system
Sure.
a bit later, but let me just address the changes for you.
Sure.
What are you doing now? What is the change? I know we talked a little bit about it last year.
Sure. So as Matt had shared formally in the Human Resource Department of our school system, and there was a retirement of Helen Donaher, the former Director of Special Services, who had done incredible work to move progress and success along for our students with identified disabilities. And upon her retirement, an opportunity came about, and Matt kind of looked at me and said, "What do you think?" And for me, this was an opportunity to go back to my roots of special education, where I started, my passion for students with disabilities and making sure that they have multiple opportunities to succeed in life, but also in the classroom as well, with their peers, alongside their peers. And so this for me was an opportunity to come back to those roots and that passion and work more closely with families and students. And quite frankly, that was an aspect of the work that I was really missing. Although I loved the work that I did at HR, I really missed the kids and I missed working with the families. So this position is going to afford me that opportunity to do just that.
So As dealing with, it's not called special service. I saw your title as pupil services now. Why was that change made from special services to pupil services?
Also, in addition to special services, I'll also continue to oversee nursing and health services. So that combination is the reason for the new title of pupil services.
Oh, okay, that's clear. All right, so let's talk a little bit more about physical changes at the schools.
All right, so a lot of action on the facilities front. I just was with our business manager, Burke LeClaire, and touring both Henry James and Squadron Line. So we had pretty significant projects approved in both locations. Construction took place over the summer, so both are reconfigurations of the main office for security purposes, but also a freshening up, I guess, so to speak, new lockers, ceilings, flooring at the first floor of Henry James, and it is going to look beautiful. Dominique, that building has been largely untouched in that main wing for 50 years, I believe, and we've had that on the capital improvement project for many, many years, going back 3 principals. I know Sue was one of them, and because of different reasons it got moved out or whatever, and we got the support to initiate that project. And with the new colors and just the lighting, I think the students are going to be welcome back, and the teachers, to an environment that'll just be uplifting.
So is it going to be ready first day of school?
I haven't been told it's not, so I'm going with that until I'm told, but I know there's a planning meeting, a big planning meeting tomorrow. I know we're going to be waiting on some of the furniture and the functionality, but the main construction, they're down to some of the finish work and the flooring.
So what are parents going to see? Those are the main people who will be watching us. What if they have to come in now? What are they going to see?
So I mean, in both buildings, you approach the building the same way in terms of the main office, but you will rather than gaining entrance into the entire building, which was one of the problems with both those entrances, you will go into the front office. So you'll be let through a set of doors. There'll be a foyer there, and then let into the front office. From a security standpoint, when we went through a large audit several years ago, that was one of the main recommendations. So the functionality of how after initial hours of student entry, people enter the building is much more secure. So we feel good about that.
So is it from the back part of the building where or in the front? It's from the back.
It's still in the front, so you still approach the building the same way. It's just a complete rewiring of the structure behind that.
The major difference being when you walk into the front of Henry James, for instance, you're walking right into the main office. Where prior to that, you had to walk some considerable distance to get to the main office, and it just wasn't a very intuitive layout. Where this is, a much better design for safety and security, but also aesthetically.
Yeah.
So, but there are so many entrances at Henry James. I mean, when people vote, they go in the cafeteria or in the back entrance. There's the cafeteria entrance. There's the, I forget, adult ed section. So it's actually the front of the building. People park and then walk around the front. Is that how it works? Or?
Most people during the day, because it's not super high volume, can park on that horseshoe, and they can enter that way. Yep.
Okay, so it's clear. And Squadron Line, same thing. So,
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
And these security things were inspired or pushed along by Newtown, right?
They were. They were projects that both had been in various ways on the capital improvement plan, but we really had some great dialogue when that unfortunate incident took place with the Board of Finance and our board about supporting moving forward with these projects.
So as the school year begins, both of you are parents. So this is going to air a little bit after the school year begins, but do you have advice for parents in preparing, especially for kids who are starting out or moving to the next level, moving to the high school or moving to the junior high school? Do you have standard advice that you give? Sue?
I think over the summer, if sleep patterns are a little bit different than they have been, start a couple of weeks. Again, I know that this is going to be airing later, but those sleep patterns and kind of getting back into timing is actually really important. We don't put enough emphasis on that. Students staying up later than typical in the summer and sleeping later than typical, certainly that's one thing. I think for younger kids, speaking with them and giving them kind of a mental model about what to expect and how exciting this is, and students are hearing about who their teachers are going to be, and giving them some idea about what to expect, but that it's going to be fun and it's going to be characterized by great adults who care for them and just want the experience to be a wonderful one.
I've noticed on some Facebook sites that there are parents who say, my kid is going to Tooten Hills and he's going to be in so-and-so's class. Are there other kids around? They'd sort of like to meet somebody so they know somebody before the first day.
I think that always helps to ease the transition. And the other piece of advice I give often is some of the angst or some of the worry sometimes with parents are during those transitional years, right? Whether it's into kindergarten or even K to 1. Or heading to the middle school to high school. And I always say communication's the key. So don't hold on to a concern or a question. Talk to somebody, talk to a teacher, ask an administrator, and it's our job to get the information out there rather than wait for something to happen and then say, oh, I should have done that back when.
Yeah, the school system really has a good website with a lot of stuff about the various schools, but it also has sort of an easy back to school information right on the front page. So even if you're not you don't have kids in the school system, you should check it out just to see what's going on. We talked. There's been some big issues going on about education just in the last couple of weeks, and I sort of wanted to get your feedback on it. The governor announced recently that the state of Connecticut has gotten a waiver so that the 11th graders don't have to take the SBAC, the new tests anymore,
right.
that they can take the SAT. So what was your reaction here to hearing that?
Right. Thrilled.
Yes.
And let me tell you why. I mean, our high school students have always participated in a standardized measure. It was formerly the CAPT, and that was in 10th grade. And as you said, we've been through a lot of changes on the curricular side, the assessment side. When this test was put into 11th grade, there was a resounding reaction among educators at every level, teachers, administrators, boards of ed, saying, hey, this just does not make great sense. The testing window that we were given landed right in the same block, or right abutted the block for students' AP tests.
That's right.
Students are taking the SAT during that time. The junior year, as we know, is the year where most students take as many of the AP courses as they can to prepare themselves for college. So when we talk about the purpose for assessment, this just didn't seem to make much sense for kids. It's something I spoke about pretty frequently in public at the board meetings. And I believe it's a real nice step in the direction of looking at our overall assessment practices, which we're doing in Simsbury now, in responding to the questions of, are we over-testing? Do the assessments that we give students have the true purpose we want? So I was thrilled. It's going to be replaced with the SAT, which 98% of our students already take. I think it makes sense. That's a measure that people are familiar with. And, the last point is, let's be honest, there's a lot of unknown about the SBAC test. I mean, we have not got the data back yet.
Right, it's coming out soon, I read.
Soon,
Yeah.
and we're not sure what that means. And I don't mean to be tongue-in-cheek about that, but other states have already done some interesting things with cut scores and everything else. So, there's a completely different standard there, and that will cause a type of reaction, and I think we're going to need time to look at the information, but a step in the right direction from my lens, and I know my team, absolutely. So I'm pleased with that.
So right after the governor made this announcement, the Connecticut Education Association came out and said they want the SBAC tests gone for the elementary grades as well. Now, when I talked to you last year, one of the main problems is in a lot of minority communities, they don't have the computers and they feel like they're being tested on how to use computers. I know you guys trained the kids on taking the tests on computers. So what is your reaction to the Teachers Education Association asking for SBAC tests to be gone altogether?
Well, I think one of the things, when you read their kind of position and their position paper on this, it's really a review of the overall kind of assessment package, right? We have different types of assessments, summative assessments, formative assessments, some standardized, some checks for practice. I think we we can't continue to make assessment decisions in isolation. So whether it's lose the S back or bring something else, I think we have to come to the conclusion on how many we need and what decisions we're going to make. We engaged a committee, Aaron Murray, our Assistant Superintendent of Teaching and Learning. We got a grant from the state. It's an assessment reduction grant, and really taking a look at the pieces of the puzzle we have in place now. I think we've done a good kind of audit and assessment, and now we need to make our own decisions on what we're going to keep and what we're going to let go. And by nature, you're a former teacher, it's hard for teachers to let things go that they see value in. So although we say we want to move away from certain things, it's easier said than done. But I definitely think it's larger than just the SBAC. The SBAC is a piece of what's become a very busy assessment picture for people, because, you know, in my conversations, we had the CMT in every grade. Now we have the SBAC in every grade. I don't know what those results look like. I certainly have questions about our younger students, in particular, trying to manipulate the technology from the feedback we got from teachers who watched it and kind of the appropriateness of that. And I think these results will allow us to speak to that a little bit more than we can right now.
Now, you mentioned over-testing. I mean, you know, I taught so many years ago that there was no testing, and I think that was a shame. But now I really feel like if I was a teacher now, I would not be happy with the extraordinarily structured nature of what you have to teach to because of the tests. I think it kills creativity.
Well, we're teaching towards standards, right? Not a test. And the assessment should be a reflection of those standards. When we look at assessment, like Matt said, it's a full picture. And I always think about, okay, what is the purpose? And are we assessing what we value? And the standards are good standards. They're high standards. So coming away from, okay, we're teaching to the test, or are we assessing the standards? And I think those are questions we have to continually ask ourselves as we're making these decisions.
You mentioned earlier, Sue, that parents need to prepare for the school year by getting their kids back on a good sleep schedule, which reminded me that there was a major report issued last week about start times, and which criticized high schools and middle schools for starting so early. And we start pretty early here in Simsbury too, right?
We do.
We do.
So is that something that, I know it's been discussed before, but we're considering is making any changes, because they said it really affects the health of you know, junior high school and high school students and their academic performance.
Do you want me to take that one?
Go ahead.
I mean, that's a conversation that seems to have cycled. I know that was probably 5 to 6 years ago. I know there was a lot of information out on that. I do know at that time I wasn't involved with it, but the district, I believe, kind of engaged in a study relative to that. I think there's definitely some benefits. One of the challenges, and you don't want to always lean on this, is the cost. You know, you try to balance the benefits with the cost and the reality of how a high school student's school day plays out, and then their after-school schedule plays out.
That's right.
But the transportation piece, if you ever were to go in that direction, you'd really have to figure out from a transportation standpoint.
So would that, when you're talking about transportation, you mean transportation, you would transport all children at the same time? Or?
Well, just the bus schedule works right now because of staggered starts.
That's right.
So unless you took a flip-flop of the elementary, basically, and the secondary, which I don't think too many people would probably support, you would have to look at significant, you double, I mean, you're talking millions of dollars. Right. Right.
So how does the school year actually start? The children come on the 26th, but the teachers are already doing something and you're already preparing. So describe a little bit what you've been doing. You've had some time off, but I think you've been very busy this summer.
So next week we start with new teacher orientation.
That's right.
So that, in terms of our excitement building and an opportunity to work with the new people we bring on board, but we take them through various aspects of professional development. We invite our teachers back on the Monday morning, and we have a convocation ceremony, so we kind of meet at the high school for kind of a breakfast, a meet and greet. And then we have an opportunity to do some neat things. I have an opportunity to speak to the faculty. It's not too many times I have a chance to bring everybody together. It's something I get really, really excited about in terms of an opening message and trying to get everybody off on a positive foot. We announce our Teacher of the Year, which is always a special moment. And we have a great one who I met with this morning that I'm just thrilled to see how that comes off. We introduce new hires. We do a lot of things in it's a pretty condensed time frame, and then they go back and principals open up with a faculty meeting, and we're off and running with a few hours of professional development. They're finishing touches on getting their classrooms ready, and we're ready to welcome kids back.
So I just drove by the high school on the way here, and I noticed a lot of cars in the parking lot. I assumed that those were teachers getting ready.
So I've been in a lot of buildings today, so this is the line, and I love it. So I'll duck in. How we doing? How was your summer? It's not over yet, Matt. But I'm ready, so it's that enthusiasm to get back and that realization that there's a little bit more time. So a lot of teachers in the building this week. Rooms look good, buildings are polished, and you see it all coming together.
Dedicated, because the adults are just as excited as the students to get back and get ready and get to the business of teaching and learning, which we love to do.
Are there special provisions made for special ed students? Beginning of the year, how do you handle that?
We actually, summer, people think by and large that it's just a break overall in instruction. And we, to begin before the beginning of the year, over the summer, we have a really extensive summer school program for students with identified needs. And it's based on the ability to maintain skill and not regress. And that was very healthy. So there was a lot of activity this summer, a lot of great learning this summer, and different kinds of transitions and how that looks. We do this for all students. Matt had talked about transition specifically from elementary to middle school. There's a large kind of meet and greet for incoming 7th graders and orientation of sorts. So, they can participate. It actually happens at the end of the previous year. Same thing with the high school. So lots of preparation activities, getting students ready, getting them excited, but also prepared to walk through the door and to know what to expect. Because with new starts also come anxiety and butterflies, and the element of that is good, but we also want to alleviate undue concern if we can do so.
So the same thing for kindergartens? Does every school do it slightly different? Do they have sort of orientation for the new kindergarten?
A little different meet and greet. They all have a little spin on it, and that's always a great day. A little bus ride around the parking lot, get them used to things, and allow the parents to see the environment that their child's going to learn in too. I always found, and that was interesting learning for me as a principal, the parents are as interested as seeing what that room's going to look like. Right. That first initial meeting with the teacher is really important in terms of getting a feel. And I understand that, having sent my youngest one to kindergarten last year. That's the first time they head in there, and you want to feel good about it.
So the New York Times and NPR both had major stories this week on the teacher shortage in the United States. I'm assuming that you do not have a shortage here. And I wanted to give you a chance to talk a little bit about why you think you don't have a shortage in Simsbury and what kind of supports you give. I know you support your new teachers, so I wanted to give you a chance to talk a little bit about the supports that you offer new teachers.
Sure. I'll open that one, and then because that was under your wing. So, one of the things we focus on, we talk a lot about, is creating great places to work. I think it's an important piece of what we're trying to do, and a huge part of that is how we support our employees. And not that we don't have challenges along the way, I'm not naive to that, but we've really put some structures in place, and we've created some resources, individuals that a major part of their job function is to support teachers in their first 3 years in Simsbury. And when we meet with our teachers about that and they go out and talk to colleagues, I do think that's something we do different from other places. So I'll let Sue talk a little more specifically about that, but I think that's a big piece of it. I think it's a desirable community to work in. Every year at Convocation, and I'll do it again, we are fortunate to be in a community that values public education, because not that we don't have our budget negotiations and our push and pull with all the various stakeholders, but everybody agrees on one thing, that it's important in this community. And our parents are supportive, the multiple boards are supportive, and that can't be underestimated, because you can't produce what we do in the way we do if you don't have that.
So, as you know, as a former teacher, it's not easy. And so that level of support, both formally and informally, is extremely important to us. I always, say that when we hire a teacher, we make $1 million investment. And part of that is support along the way. So, we had mentioned briefly our new teacher orientation. It's a week-long, bringing teachers in and talking with them about our expectations, what our teaching standards are, what that looks like when you achieve them. I'll be working with the supervisor of special services of the district, Christine Golden, and we'll be sharing with them, what is the most important to know about special education. Matt mentioned our more formal program for our teachers in years 1, 2, and 3. It's called our TEAM program, but very direct instruction, again, about how to achieve those high standards. What does it look like? And then informally, whether it be teachers meeting with mentors, classroom buddies, we'll call them, but how do we do those check-ins over time? One of the best meetings that I would have during the school year is when teachers were kind of exiting that new teacher status. And I would ask them, what has worked well? And by and large, they would always say the support I received, both formally and informally. So we're really proud of that, and it makes it work.
So one piece I just want to add on to that we're really excited about this year. We surveyed our teachers on what they value about professional development. We're going to make a big push this year relative to peer observation, allowing opportunities for teachers to go see their partners teach and practice. The teacher isolation issue is still there. And our teachers and principals worked on it a little bit last year, and the feedback was really something else about their value of that they could get more out of going into a colleague and watching what they did with a problem of practice that they had decided upon than going to a 4-hour workshop. And if we can truly take advantage of our own expertise from kind of that professional learning community model, I think we're really on to something that builds a culture, and I think that's what you're after, to build a systemic culture there. So.
Well, as you said, a great place to work.
Yep.
So we have about a minute left. I want to give you each a chance to just sort of give in 30 seconds or so a message to the community about the new school year this year.
Sure. So extremely excited to open up. The synergy from the changes we've made on our team is certainly have us thinking in different ways and creative ways about things. So I welcome everybody back, and we'll be at each of the schools to greet students, to greet parents on that opening day, as we always do, and looking forward to kicking off a wonderful school year.
I would just say to the Simsbury community, thank you for being so supportive. Thank you for trusting us with your children, and knowing that year in, after year, we continue to do a great job, as evidenced by our continued success of our graduates. So we look forward to the opportunity once again, and a Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Right. So our time is up. Thank you both for coming here, for making the time,
you,
Matt
Dominique.
Curtis and Sue Lemke. And I'd also like to thank everyone here at SCTV behind the scenes for their help in getting the show on the air. And of course, thank you for watching. If you missed any part of the show, you can always watch it on our website. Just go to simsburytv.org, where you can also see our TV schedules. I'm Dominique Avery. See you next time for Simsbury School News, where you've already heard we will meet the new principal of Simsbury High School, Andrew O'Brien.
Funding for Simsbury Community Television is provided in part by contributions from viewers like you. Thank you.